As someone who loves a good action game, I've always had a hard time finding a turn-based tactics game that really speaks to me. So that inspired me to go out and find some turn-based tactics games that really work for the way I enjoy video games. These games are snappy, yet strategic, they're action-oriented, yet still turn-based. So if you're looking to add some strategy to your gaming library, then let's talk about 5 turn-based tactics games that anyone can enjoy. First up is a game called Arco. Arco's combat is one of the most unique takes on the tactics genre, but I want to talk first about its narrative. Every choice you make in Arco matters, whether it's the things you have in your inventory or the things you say to people you meet on your adventure. In some cases, it could be life or death depending on what you choose. But the more dramatic conclusions result in you changing the story in ways that you can't go back on. And there are examples of this happening all the time in Arco. There's people who look for food, and if you give them food, they might ambush you, or they might just be hungry. And on top of that, the things you do to progress the game's story also have great effects. Doing one thing may or may not change something else about the main narrative. And one thing that also affects the way your game goes is how you grow your character and their abilities. Your main weapon in this game is a bow and arrow, and you're going to use it in various different ways. There's lots of different abilities that go with the weapon. And although the combat is turn-based, it's more focused on the amount of abilities you can use during a turn. So you need to make sure that you're out of the line of sight of enemies when you're recharging your abilities, because you're going to take damage if you're not careful. So your strategy needs to revolve not only around where you go, but also where your enemies are placed as well. And there are so many different ways to grow your character and all different abilities to unlock, so there's really no one right way to play Arco. And the combat did take a little bit of getting used to, but once I was in the swing of things, this game became a lot of fun. And unlike other tactics games where you're controlling a whole group of units, in this one you've only got control over the one. And right now you can play Arco on Nintendo Switch or Steam. Next up, we're going to talk about one of the best strategy games to come out in a long time, and it's called Into the Breach. This game's a little bit older, but it has aged so well. In this game, you're leading a squad of time travelers on a mission to stop an alien invasion. So they'll travel back in time to when the invasion starts, they'll make their attempts at stopping the invasion, and if and when they fail, they gotta start the loop over again. This is a much more traditional tactics game where you're commanding 3 units at a time, and they all have different abilities. And as you play the game and get through different encounters, you're gonna unlock different units that you can then bring back to the beginning of the loop. And each one of these loops or runs is procedurally generated, but honestly, the game doesn't feel randomized at all. And that's partially due to the fact that each encounter feels more like a battle puzzle than it does a full-on fight. Because winning encounters isn't about going crazy on enemies with weapons, at least most of the time. Instead, you're trying to use your abilities to knock enemies away from civilians, as well as knock enemies into each other. And although it's great to clear a map of aliens, you're really trying to survive as long as possible while preventing as many casualties as you can. Because remember, this game's about saving humanity and preventing an invasion, and that usually means avoiding casualties from big giant bug monsters. And if you want to get Into the Breach, then you can play it on Nintendo Switch, Steam, iOS, and Android. The Metal Slug series is typically a side-scrolling action game, and it was made popular by being in the arcades. It was an SNK game, so you'd play that or Puzzle Bobble, 2 games with entirely different vibes. But in this installment, Metal Slug Tactics is a turn-based tactics game. But even though this game takes the series into a completely different direction, it still somehow feels like Metal Slug. Presentation, the music, the way the game feels to play, everything here is reminiscent of what made it popular in the first place. You can really tell that great care was taken to keep those retro vibes in check. And when it comes to the actual gameplay, it does play like a standard tactics game with one really big caveat. Each turn, you're encouraged to move your units as far as you can for as many spaces as you can. Having them cover as much ground as possible during your turn does 2 things. On one hand, your units are going to take less damage the more they move around the map. They're literally going to build counters, and this is important during the enemy turn because there's more of them than there are of you. And on the other hand, it builds up adrenaline, and this is used for your special abilities. And although you're obviously going to do lots of damage to the enemy during your turn, it's important to set up your units in a way that they're going to counter enemy attacks to do damage back to them. And somehow, overall, it does feel like a Metal Slug experience, even though it is one of the most different games in the entire series. And if you want to get into the fray on Metal Slug Tactics, you can play this game on Nintendo Switch, Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox. Tactical Breach Wizards is probably the most complicated tactics game on this list, but I still found it to be a lot of fun. You play as a group of special ops wizards, the basically Navy SEALs that have magic wands, and your group is using their abilities to figure out a big conspiracy that's going on amongst all of the different wizards. The writing in this game couldn't be funnier. The characters and their interactions make me come back for more every single time. The art style is really cool. It's minimal, yet really fun to look at. But aside this game's heaps of personality, the combat is a lot of of fun as well. Getting acquainted with each wizard's skill set is integral to understanding what you can do in each scenario. And similar to Into the Breach, a lot of the strategy in Tactical Breach Wizards involves you moving units around the map so that maybe your other units can get a shot at them. It's also important sometimes to throw them out the window. But this is just another way that Tactical Breach Wizards reminds you that it's just a ton of fun and it's a game with a lot of really cool ideas. And as you start getting more comfortable and more adept with the strategy in this game, you can start taking on some of the optional missions, which makes it easier for you to grow your characters. The more abilities you unlock, the more cool stuff they can do in combat, and the fun continues from there. And if you want to throw yourself into Tactical Breach Wizards, and you can play this game on Steam right now. And finally, we're going to talk about a game that's not even out yet, but you can finally play its demo, and it's called StarVaders. If this game sounds familiar to you, that's because we talked about it earlier this year in my PAX East video. But just to refresh your memory, it's a card-based deck builder which has you choosing a mech and a pilot because of their different abilities. Every run's strategy depends on the synergy between the mech and the pilot that you choose. And the goal of every match is to defeat each enemy before they make their way to the bottom of the board. Letting too many enemies hang out down there for too long is game over. But eventually, some standout cards are going to start to form the true strategy around your deck, and those are the ones you want to invest in. You're going to want to get more cards like that. You're going to want to upgrade cards like that. You're going to want to get cards that complement cards like that. This is how you win in StarVaders. Or at least this is how you should win, because I didn't have a ton of luck in this game because this demo is kind of difficult. But in spite of being kind of difficult, StarVaders is very easy to pick up and learn. And in the full version of this game, more pilots will be available, more mechs will be available, and I'm sure there's going to be different cards and challenges as well. On top of a regular story mode, there's also going to be a lot of different challenge modes in this game as well, but it's a little too early to tell because, again, we're still talking about a demo. And if you want to try this demo for yourself, it's on Steam right now, and it plays perfectly well on the Steam Deck. I find it kind of funny that I love the tactics game genre, but I'm not really that good at it. I did grow up playing Final Fantasy Tactics on the Game Boy Advance and the PlayStation, but it never really clicked with me to go to the more advanced ones. So it's just nice that games like this are popping up. Games that are really fun strategy games that still keep themselves accessible. So if you're a person who loves tactics games, let me know in the comments which games you would suggest to a new player, and if you're brand new to the genre, then let me know which one of these games you picked to start off with. And if you found any of these games interesting at all, then you have to like the video. That's a rule. I didn't make it up, so I'm just the messenger here, okay? And if you really like this video, then you've got to subscribe, because I'm going to make videos like this all the time, and you subscribing tells me that you like videos like this. But ultimately, I'm just thankful that you watched my video for this long, so thanks for hanging out. And of course, thank you very much for letting me talk your ear off about 5 tactics games that I think anyone can enjoy, and I hope you have a great day. You want to see something cool? Check it out. My microphone, wireless, no wires. I can be over here. I can be like right up against the wall. I can be down here and talking to you about stuff, and you wouldn't even know where I was. Like, where's Dan? He's here. He's here. He's somewhere around here. That's right. Wireless microphone. Hopefully the mic will come back soon. I'm waiting for it. But let me know how you like this one. It's kind of different, right? All right, I'll see you later.